after our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. Jeff was truly happy, eagerly looking forward to seeing our child. When our daughter Stacy was born, Jeff took an active role in parenting, and I lived happily. However, I had some worries. The biggest concern was about my mother. Her health improved upon seeing her grandchild, despite being almost bedridden before, and she visited us often. Initially, she visited frequently, but as Stacy entered middle school, my mother's health visibly declined. I quit my job to be available for my mother, choosing remote work. This decision allowed me to fully take care of my mother's hospital admissions and discharges by the time Stacy graduated middle school. My mother was very happy when we visited her. I hoped she would gradually recover and be able to go out as before. However, around this time, Jeff's behavior began to change. Initially, he was willing to help with my mother's care, but lately, he had become grumpy, complaining that I wasn't paying attention to him. Going to your mother's again? You don't care for me when I'm tired from work, but you always look after your sick mother. I wish I were sick too. He would say such incomprehensible things, and even when Stacy and I tried to appease him, he strongly rejected our efforts. Worried about both my mother and Jeff, Stacy took over caring for Jeff. Mom, leave Dad to me. You should go to Grandma's sooner, Stacy said with a smile, and I always relied on her. One day, while living this way, I received a call from my sister-in-law, Nicole. You've been neglecting my brother lately, she accused out of the blue, making me stare at my phone screen in surprise. I wondered if there was a mix-up, but Nicole's name was clearly displayed on my phone screen. Confused by the baseless accusation, I could only deny it. It's been a while, Nicole. What's going on all of a sudden? I haven't been neglecting Jeff. I was clueless as to why Nicole would say such a thing. Don't play dumb. I've heard it from my brother. Lately, you've been neglecting the house to care only for your own mother. Can you still proudly call yourself a wife? Indeed, I had been focusing more on my ill mother lately, but I never thought Jeff would tell Nicole about it. However, I wasn't neglecting our home. Stacy helps with the household chores when she gets back from school, and I manage both my work and my mother's care along with the housework. Lately, I did feel like Jeff's complaints had increased, but they were about trivial things like wanting to eat at expensive restaurants or not liking the smell of the laundry detergent, things we couldn't do much about. I was not neglecting the household chores. Just as I was about to explain in detail, Nicole said something shocking. Unfortunately, this has reached our parents too. Someday, our angry mother might come to scold you. Leaving me with those irrational words, Nicole hung up immediately. Surprised by the unexpected turn of events, I was speechless until Stacy spoke to me. Mom, I'm home. What happened? You look stunned. Regaining my composure, I told Stacy, who had just returned from school, about the conversation. Stacy, too, was shocked and incredulous, sighing in disbelief. Hey, Mom, there's something I've been thinking about for a while. Can I talk to you about it? Nervously, I nodded to Stacy's serious request. Listening to Stacy's concerns made me feel truly disheartened. During a period filled with Jeff's nonsensical complaints and Nicole's harassing calls, my in-laws finally took action. One day, after visiting my mother, I came home to find my mother-in-law cooking in the kitchen. Entering the living room, I was so surprised that I dropped my things and just stood there, staring at her. Noticing me, my mother-in-law frowned and approached. Oh, you're back. How's your mother? Well, have a seat anyway. Feeling her irritation, I had no choice but to follow her past me to our living room sofa, where I received a lengthy lecture. Initially, she scolded me for my attitude towards Jeff and berated me for neglecting my household duties and making my husband do chores. However, I noticed some inconsistencies in her lecture and corrected her. Mother, there are some misunderstandings. I have never made Jeff do the household chores. In fact, Jeff hardly helps at all. Embarrassingly, it's Stacy who helps me out. Hearing this, my mother-in-law suddenly stood up, pointed at me, and started shouting. Do you think that lie will work on me? Are you saying that child is lying to me? What a terrible daughter-in-law. That's enough. With her face red with anger, she stormed out, leaving the stove on and everything behind like a tempest. I hurried to turn off the stove so I couldn't chase after my mother-in-law. That day, Jeff was in a strangely good mood, almost unnervingly generous. He kept cutting me off every time I tried to start a conversation. Stacy also seemed puzzled by this, so we decided to stay silent and watch the situation for now, not wanting to upset Jeff. For a few days, Jeff continued to be in a good mood without any issues. Thanks to that, I was able to take care of my mother without feeling uneasy. However, a few days later, my mother quietly passed away. Stacy and I, though engulfed in sadness, managed to get through the funeral and decided to spend some time sorting through my mother's belongings at her house. I had wanted Jeff to help, but mentioning it made him sullen for the first time in a while. So, Stacy and I proceeded with the task, and naturally, the house was filled with memories of my mother, making it difficult to make much progress as each item reminded us of her. I reluctantly contacted Jeff and ended up staying at my mother's house for the night, but he seemed to be in a good mood. Take your time and relax since you're already there, he said, but with Stacy's school and my work, it wasn't that simple. For the time being, I told him we would return home the next day and decided to rest for the night. The next day, after making some progress with the sorting, we decided to go back to our house. As we approached our home, I noticed a large truck parked in front of the house. Wondering what it was, I realized it was a moving truck, with Jeff and my mother-in-law directing the unloading. What's going on here? I ran up with Stacy to stop them, but Jeff stepped forward, puffing out his chest as he noticed us. What? You're back already? It's too late for you to return now. What? As I stood there in shock, watching the belongings being moved into the house, Jeff crossed his arms and continued proudly. I'm moving in with my family, so you two need to leave. While the movers were receiving instructions from my in-laws, Jeff pointed at us and loudly declared. His face twisted maliciously, and I couldn't help but show my disgust. However, Stacy, standing next to me, asked Jeff with confusion. Dad, you didn't know? Hearing this, Jeff was visibly puzzled. Stacy seemed so flustered that not only Jeff but also his mother and father stopped what they were doing and looked over at us. But Nicole continued to give instructions to the movers, seemingly uninterested in the situation. Despite my dismay at the behavior of Jeff's family, I was determined to reveal a certain truth. Forgotten? This house is mine. The in-laws were shocked, and Jeff began to panic, turning pale. Even Nicole stopped directing the movers and confronted me. What are you talking about? There's no way you could afford to build such a